There's a kind of woman the world keeps getting wrong, not because she's hard to read, because she's too easy to dismiss. She doesn't fill the room when she walks in. Doesn't need to. She finds the corner, opens a book, lets the noise happen around her like weather she's already survived. They see quiet and think soft. They see still and think empty. They see a woman sitting alone and think easy. That's the last mistake they make. Because some people aren't quiet because they're afraid. They're quiet because they've already calculated the distance between your confidence and your ability to back it up. They've already seen how this ends. They're just waiting patient as deep water for you to take the first step in. This is the story of a woman who let them swing, who let them laugh, who let them believe they had won, and then with no anger, no performance, no wasted motion, showed them exactly what silence had been holding. The church smelled like candles and wet wool, and Nora Calloway stood in the third pew from the front, still, hands folded, eyes dry. Not because she wasn't broken, because she had learned a long time ago that broken is a private thing. You don't put it on the table for people to poke at. You carry it. You carry it the same way you carry everything else. Quietly, completely, without asking anyone to notice the weight. The coffin was dark wood, simple. Daniel would have hated anything fancy. He was an engineer. He believed in things that worked. Practical, honest, load-bearing, which was funny. Because the most load-bearing thing in his life was a woman in a Navy uniform who couldn't cook a real meal to save herself and once drove them 4 hours in the wrong direction because she refused to admit the GPS was right. He had loved her anyway, loudly, specifically, in the particular way that very few people ever get loved. Like someone had studied exactly who you were and decided, yes, this one, I'm keeping this one. The minister was saying something about peace, about reunion, about the Lord's house having many rooms. Nora was thinking about the drive home, whether she needed to call the base, whether the paperwork for her next rotation was already waiting on her desk. Stop. She made herself stop. She made herself look at the coffin, at the flowers white because Daniel once said white flowers at a funeral meant someone was taken too soon, at the people filing past, his colleagues, his sister from Portland, the neighbors with the yappy terrier he secretly fed biscuits to every morning before she woke up. She hadn't known about the biscuits until the neighbor told her, standing right here, in this church, 20 minutes ago. And that right there, that was the one that almost cracked her. Not the coffin, not the white flowers, the biscuits. Because it meant there were still things about him she didn't know. And now she was never going to. The inventory was closed. Final. No new information coming. She pressed her thumbnail into her palm, hard, just enough. Breathed in through her nose, held it, let it out slow. The minister kept talking. Nora kept standing. 48 hours later, she was back on base. Nobody asked where she'd been. That wasn't cruelty. That was the military. You show up, you do the work. Your grief is your own business, which suited Nora Calloway just fine, because she had been operating on that principle since she was 19 years old and decided that the ocean was less complicated than people. She had been wrong about that, obviously. The ocean is extremely complicated, but it doesn't pretend otherwise, which counts for a lot. She filed 3 reports that first day back, attended 2 briefings, reviewed a gear inspection log that had been sitting unattended in her inbox for 4 days. She was very busy, very, very busy. Because if she stopped being busy, if she sat still long enough, the biscuits would come back. And the way he used to say her name, not Commander, not ma'am, just Nora, 2 syllables. The whole world in 2 syllables. So, busy. She stayed busy for 3 months. And then one evening, sitting in her office at 11 at night, staring at a maintenance report that had nothing wrong with it, she stopped. She looked at the report. She looked at the wall. She looked at the photo on her desk. Daniel in a yellow raincoat, Cape Cod 2019, laughing at something she'd said. And she pulled up the internal transfer request system. And she typed, requesting reassignment, stateside, non-combat rotation. She stared at what she'd written for a long time. Her whole career she had gone toward the hard posting, the forward base, the deep water. Every time there was a door marked danger, she had walked through it like it owed her something. But Daniel was gone, and for the first time in 24 years of service, she wasn't sure what she was walking toward anymore. She submitted the request before she could think about it too long. 3 weeks later, she was assigned to Camp Hollander. Coastal. Quiet. The kind of base where not much happened. The transfer paperwork cited a medical note. Inner ear irregularities. Pressure tolerance evaluation pending. Nora hadn't written that note, hadn't asked for it. Someone in the bureaucratic machinery had generated it. A cover story. Polite, plausible. Because a female SEAL requesting a stateside rotation for personal reasons was a conversation nobody wanted to have. So they gave her a medical excuse instead, and she let them, because the medical excuse made people underestimate her. And she had learned over 24 years that being underestimated is a resource, if you're smart enough to use it. Camp Hollander sat 12 miles from the coast. You couldn't see the water from the base, but you could smell it. Salt and kelp and the particular cold that comes off the Pacific in November. Sharp, clean, honest. Nora liked it. She settled into the routine the way she settled into everything. Completely. Without fanfare. She ran at 5:30. She ate in the main hall and didn't linger. She attended briefings, submitted reports, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. She was very professional, and she was very, very lonely, which she did not say out loud to anyone. Because, well, she was Nora Calloway. There was a bar 3 miles off base. Danner's. Not glamorous. A converted mechanic's garage that someone had put bar stools in around 1987 and called it a day. Concrete floor, drop ceiling, a jukebox that worked about 60% of the time and played exclusively albums from the 90s when it did. But the light was low and the booths in the back corner were private, and the man behind the bar, Garrison. Garrison didn't ask questions. He was 67 years old, built wide and solid the way some men are built when they've spent decades doing physical work and never quite stopped. White hair close-cropped, hands that had clearly seen a lot of life and weren't shy about it. He moved behind that bar with the economy of someone who had been doing the same job for a long time and had stopped wasting motion somewhere around 2003. The first night Nora came in, he looked at her, read her uniform, read her face, read whatever it is that people like Garrison read when they look at someone. Put a glass of soda in front of her, didn't ask what she wanted, didn't introduce himself, didn't make small talk, just the glass. Nora had almost said something, almost. Instead, she sat down, opened the paperback she'd been carrying for 3 weeks without getting past page 47, and she read, or she looked at the page, which is not exactly the same thing. She came back the next Thursday, same corner, same glass appeared. Garrison looked at her once. She looked at him once. That was the entire transaction. After the 3rd week, she realized she was coming to Danner's, not because she needed a drink. She didn't even drink. She was coming because the silence here was different from the silence in her quarters. In her quarters, the silence had Daniel's shape in it. At Danner's, it was just silence, plain, uncomplicated, load-bearing. She could breathe in that silence. She had been breathing in it for 2 months. The Friday night that everything changed started like every other Friday night. Nora walked in at 8:15. Garrison looked up from whatever he was wiping down. She nodded. He nodded. She went to her corner. She sat. The bar was about half full, few contractors at the high tops, 2 younger sailors playing pool without much conviction. A couple arguing quietly in the booth across the room, the kind of quiet argument that has clearly been going on for weeks and is really about something else entirely. Normal. Unremarkable. Exactly the kind of evening that asks nothing of you. The door opened. She didn't look up. She heard them, though. You could hear Cord Macklin before you saw him. That was, Nora would reflect later, both his defining characteristic and his fundamental problem. He was 24 years old, built like someone who had been hitting the gym since he was 16 and wanted full credit for it. And he operated at a volume that suggested he had never once in his life sat quietly in a room and thought about anything. "Gentlemen," he announced like someone who had seen too many movies and was still calibrating his own entrance. "The weekend officially starts now." Hewitt came in behind him, then Dade. Hewitt was the quiet one of the group, which is not the same as being thoughtful. He had his phone out before he'd fully crossed the threshold. Not texting, recording. Not a story to send someone. Just recording, running, passive. Like he did this everywhere he went. Like he was always ready. That Nora thought from the corner of her eye, still not looking up, is habit, not impulse. She turned the page. Macklin dropped onto a bar stool with the specific energy of a man who believes he is the most interesting thing in whatever room he enters. He scanned the room. The contractors, the pool players, the arguing couple, and then the woman in the corner. Nora felt the scan land, didn't react. "Hey," loud enough to carry. "Who's the officer?" One of his friends said something low. "SEAL unit," Dade said. "Diver, she got reassigned." "What for?" "Ear thing, can't go deep anymore." Macklin made a sound that was technically a laugh but functioned like a dismissal. "So she's decorative now." Garrison stopped what he was doing. The motion just stopped. Nora turned the page. "Hey," Macklin's voice louder. "Officer, you want a real drink? That soda looks like it gave up on itself." She didn't answer. This was not a social choice. This was a tactical one. Because there are 2 types of men who talk loud in bars. The kind who, when ignored, get embarrassed and redirect elsewhere. And the kind who, when ignored, interpret silence as an invitation. She needed to know which kind Cord Macklin was. He stood up. Okay, so, that kind. He walked over. Not fast, the slow walk of someone who has never been told no in any context that mattered. He stopped beside her booth, looked down at her. You hard of hearing or just rude? Nora looked up from her book. This was the first time she looked directly at him. She didn't say anything yet, she just looked. The look wasn't aggressive, it wasn't nervous. It was the look of someone doing a very fast and thorough assessment and coming to a conclusion they are keeping to themselves. She looked back down at her book. Macklin's jaw shifted. She heard it. Unbelievable. He said it like he was narrating for someone, which he was. Hewitt was still recording. Macklin leaned on the table, not touching her, but occupying her space. The way some people do, the casual invasion of someone else's air. Let me guess, they give you a desk job and a bad attitude and call it a career. Garrison moved toward the end of the bar. Nora turned another page. She wasn't reading. She was counting, cataloging. The distance between Macklin and the table, the angle of his weight, how far Hewitt had moved, whether Dade was the kind who jumped in or the kind who watched. This is what 24 years of field work does to a person. You stop experiencing situations. You start analyzing them in real time, automatically, the way you breathe. Macklin reached out, picked up her glass, held it. The theatrical pause of someone who wants you to react. Then set it back down, hard. Soda over the rim, over the table, over the edge of the booth. Some of it caught the side of her boot. She looked down at her boot, just once, then back at the page. Macklin straightened. He looked at her for a moment. This woman in a faded fleece, reading a book, not even looking at him. And something in him, something young and defensive and fundamentally afraid of being irrelevant, made a decision. He raised his right hand, 2 fingers, extended. He flicked her forehead, light, like a dare, like something you do to a kid in 7th grade to see what they'll do. Then he pulled back and threw the punch. Not a full swing, a sharp lateral jab, open knuckles aimed at her cheekbone. The kind of hit designed to humiliate rather than damage. The kind that says, look how easy this is. And Nora. Nora saw it coming. From the moment he raised his hand, she had read it. The angle of his elbow, the direction of his weight, the slight cock of his wrist. She knew exactly where his hand was going to land and at what speed. She could have moved, left or right, half a second, less. She didn't. She let it hit. And here's the thing that nobody in that bar understood. Not Macklin, not Hewitt, not the pool players. She didn't let it hit because she was caught off guard. She let it hit because Hewitt was recording. Because a video of a Marine corporal being dropped by a female officer is just a bar fight. Complicated, muddied, his word against hers. But a video of a Marine corporal assaulting an unarmed woman sitting in a corner reading a book, that is a record. That is precedent. That is something you can take into a room with wood-paneled walls and say, watch this. The blow landed. Her head rocked sideways. She went down to one knee. The corner of the booth caught her shoulder. Gasps, genuine ones, even from Macklin's own crew. The kind of silence that happens when something crosses a line everyone in the room silently agreed existed. Then, Nora rose, slow, steady, no hand on the table for balance, no wobble. Blood at the corner of her lip. She wiped it with her knuckle. The way you wipe away something minor, something inconvenient, a bit of weather. She looked at Garrison, then at Hewitt, specifically at the phone, the recording, then at Macklin. You're all done here. No performance in it. No volume. Just words arranged in the order of fact. Macklin laughed, the laugh of someone less certain than they sound. Yeah, you calling the bar police? Nora picked up her jacket, one arm, then the other, smoothed it down. Picked up her book, walked out, past Garrison, past the Marines, past the couple who had stopped arguing to stare, past the pool table. No limp, no hesitation, out the rear door. Behind her, she heard one of them say, guess that's what they mean by standing down. And then a laugh, thinner than the last one. Performed. The kind of laugh that happens after something goes wrong and nobody wants to be the first to acknowledge it. The parking lot was cold. October cold, the kind that comes off the water at night and doesn't apologize for itself. Nora stood under the sodium light near the base access gate, pressed 2 fingers to her cheekbone. Not hard, just checking. Not broken, bruised, deeply probably. It would show tomorrow. Good. She straightened her collar, walked into the small security outpost by the gate. The MP on duty was young, mid-20s. He looked up with the expression of someone not expecting company. Ma'am, I'm reporting an off-base incident, Nora said. 3 active Marines, minor assault, on camera. I need it documented. He blinked. Do you want to file a formal complaint? She looked at her reflection in the small dark window above his desk. The bruise was already starting. A shadow under her cheekbone. No, she said. I want it documented. She gave him the names, the badge numbers she'd memorized in the bar while she was supposedly reading, the time, the location. Precise, correct, not a wasted word. He typed it all in, looked up, started to say something, decided against it. Yes, ma'am, it's documented. Thank you. She walked out, didn't look back, already thinking about the next step. In the Marine barracks, the video was 12 minutes old. Hewitt had uploaded it to the group thread before they'd even ordered another round. By the time they walked back on base, it had 17 views. By midnight 43, Corporal Reyes, SEAL unit, not Marine, was sitting on his footlocker when his bunkmate showed him the clip. He watched it once, without expression. His bunkmate was laughing, the way people laugh at things on the internet before they've thought about them. Reflexive. Performed. Reyes watched it again. She saw it, he said. What? She saw the punch coming. His bunkmate shrugged. So she froze. No. Reyes took the phone, rewound it, played the moment again, the second before contact. The way her eyes tracked up, the micro-adjustment in her posture. That's not freezing, that's choosing. His bunkmate stared at him. Why would she choose to get hit? Reyes handed the phone back, didn't answer, but he was already thinking. He walked across the compound to the SEAL ready room at 12:45 in the morning. Master Chief Boone was there. Of course he was. Boone was always there at hours when reasonable people were asleep. 61 years old, 26 years in, operating on what he called watch hours, which meant he hadn't slept more than 4 consecutive hours since approximately 2008 and claimed to be fine about it. He was at the small table near the gear lockers, coffee, a maintenance report annotated in handwriting so small it was practically coded. He looked up when Reyes came in. You're up late. Have you seen the video? Boone put down his pen. Show me. Reyes played it. Boone watched it once. Play it again. He watched the moment of impact, the moment after, the way she rose, the way she wiped her lip, the way she looked directly at the camera before she walked out. He sat back. She looked at the camera, Reyes said. Yes, not at Macklin, at the camera. Yes. So she knew it was recording. She knew from the moment they walked in, Boone said. Quiet, certain. Reyes sat down across from him. Then the punch. Evidence, Boone said. She let it land because it's evidence, clean, unambiguous, on video, from his own crew. The ready room was very quiet. The fluorescent light buzzed faintly. She is not a victim in that video, Boone said. She's a strategist. Reyes was quiet. Then, so what happens next? She files a report, gets it documented, the video circulates, and then she waits for them to make the next mistake. And if they don't, Boone picked up his pen. They will. He was right. But what matters right now is what Reyes found the following morning. He'd pulled the internal conduct reports for Macklin's unit, not looking for anything specific, just looking. And what he found made him sit down, made him read it twice, then a third time, then print it, because he didn't want to look at it on a screen anymore. He walked to Boone's office, put the pages on the desk. Boone picked them up. Read. His face didn't change, but his hands stopped moving. The pen just stopped. Because in the 14 months since Macklin's unit had been assigned to Camp Hollander, 4 women, 4 separate reports, submitted through proper channels, 4 different women, different ranks, different units, all describing incidents with the same cluster of names attached, the same pattern, the same escalation, the same basic dynamic, loud young, armed with the assumption that nobody would believe you. All 4 reports had been closed. Insufficient evidence. No corroborating witnesses. Behavior did not meet threshold for formal action. 4 women, 14 months, closed, filed, forgotten. Boone set the pages down, looked at Reyes. Does she know about these? I don't know, Reyes said. But the way she was sitting in that bar, Boone, the soda, the book, the same corner every week, he paused. What if she wasn't just going to Danner's to decompress? Boone looked at the 4 reports. What if she was already building something before any of this started? The fluorescent light buzzed. Outside the base was waking up. Boots on gravel, engine noise from the motor pool, the mechanical indifference of another day starting. Inside this room, 2 men reading 4 pages, beginning to understand that the woman they thought they were watching was watching something else entirely, something larger, something patient, something that had been in motion longer than any of them had realized. Nora drove back to base at 9:18. She parked, walked to her quarters, sat on the edge of her bed. The room was small, government issue everything. 1 photo on the desk, Daniel in a yellow raincoat, Cape Cod. She looked at the photo for a long time. Then she reached into the drawer beside her bed, pulled out a notebook. Not military issue, just a plain spiral notebook. Blue cover, the kind you get at a drugstore. She opened it to a page near the middle. There were dates, observations, a list of names. She added tonight's date, 3 new names, a note about the video, the MP report number. She closed the notebook, put it back in the drawer, lay down, stared at the ceiling. Outside, the base was quiet, the night shift running its routines. The ocean somewhere beyond the tree line doing what oceans do regardless of everything. She was very tired. Not the tired that sleep fixes, the other kind. The kind that comes from doing the right thing in the wrong system for a long time in the same way without result. But 4 reports, closed, with no video, no witnesses who came forward, no one willing to stand in a room and say, I saw it. I was there. This is what happened. That was the missing piece. And now it was on Hewitt's phone. Uploaded, circulating. A gift, really, from a 24-year-old boy who thought he was recording a victory. Nora felt something shift in her chest. Not quite warmth, more like resolution. The way a compass needle settles. Click, north. She opened her eyes. Tomorrow, there was work to do. Tonight, she was going to sleep. And she was going to let herself be for 8 hours just a woman who missed her husband. Just that, nothing else. The board went up at 0645. Standard issue. White laminate, black marker. The kind of board that had been announcing the day's schedule at Camp Hollander since before half these recruits were born. Most mornings, nobody paid it much attention. But this particular morning, Cord Macklin walked into the conditioning wing at 0652, still carrying the loose confidence of a man who had spent the last 24 hours telling himself a story about how the previous evening had gone. He glanced at the board and stopped, completely, like someone had cut the power. 0700, Joint Endurance and Water Rescue Circuit. Lead instructor Lieutenant Commander N. Calloway. Attendance mandatory. All physical cert candidates, mixed units. He read it twice, then a third time, as if the third time might produce a different result. Hewitt came up behind him, read the board, went very still. Dade came in after both of them, looked at their faces, looked at the board. Is that? Yes, Macklin said. One word. Flat. All the air gone out of it. The admin officer walked past adjusting his clipboard and said without looking up, Commander Calloway holds Force Recon qualification from 2022. 2 active dive commendations. If she says run, gentlemen, you run. He kept walking. The hallway held a very specific kind of quiet after that. This is fine, Macklin told himself. It's just a training circuit. She's just an instructor. It's not. He looked at the board again. It was not fine. She was already there when they arrived. Full training gear. Dive unit insignia on the shoulder, hair back, standing in front of the group with no clipboard, no whistle, nothing in her hands at all. Just her. The bruise was still visible. Faint now, a shadow under her left cheekbone. She didn't reference it, didn't gesture to it, didn't use it. She just stood there looking at 43 recruits in the pale morning light of the training bay with the expression of someone who has done this 100 times and will do it 100 more and has no strong feelings about the number. Macklin fell into formation, did not look at her directly, which was, she noticed, a form of looking. Today's circuit is water rescue, she said. Not loud, not soft, just the right volume to reach the back of the room without effort. Weighted dummy, base depth, simulated current resistance. You will partner across unit lines. 1 Marine, 1 SEAL candidate. Objective extract, recover, full transport to deck, under 3 minutes. Pause. Failure to meet standard means you run it again. Murmurs. Not quite protest. The low-grade vibration of people recalibrating their expectations for the next hour. Corporal Macklin. He looked up. Couldn't help it. Pool 1 with Petty Officer Strand. She was already moving to the next name, like he was just a name on a list, which he was. He pulled his swim vest on, told himself this was nothing, told himself she was nobody. The horn buzzed. He dove. 40 seconds and everything went wrong. Not dramatically, that was the worst part. It went wrong the way things go wrong when you're not used to working with someone else's rhythm. Small failures, accumulating quietly, until the clock passes the cutoff and the dummy is still at the bottom and there is nothing to do but surface. Macklin grabbed for the dummy's shoulder harness. His partner had gone for the base weight simultaneously. They collided. Not hard, but enough. The dummy rotated, sank another foot. By the time they wrestled it to the surface, 3 minutes 40. Way over. He grabbed early, Macklin said. Not quite yelling, not quite under control. That's not on me. Nora made a small notation on her clipboard. Redo, she said. Same tone, same volume, nothing in her face. Like his explanation had entered the room and quietly ceased to exist. The second attempt was worse. The frustration had gotten into his muscles, made him faster where he needed to be slow. He surfaced, checked the clock. 4 minutes 2. He grabbed the pool edge, looked up at the ceiling, exhaled something that was structurally a word but emotionally a surrender. Stand down. Her voice, from the pool deck. She was taking off her vest, setting it on the bench. Everyone out of the water. They climbed out, dripping, confused. Nora walked to the edge of the pool and stepped in, fully clothed. Boots, pants, jacket, all of it. No preparation, no announcement, no performance. Just in. The water closed over her and the room went completely silent. You could hear the pool filter. You could hear people breathing. 15 seconds, 20, 30. She surfaced. One arm looped through the dummy's harness. One leg braced against the current from the tank turbines. She pivoted in the water, drove the dummy's weight upward, maneuvered it against the pool wall, and in a single controlled surge, the dummy was on the deck. She climbed out after it. 2 minutes, 11 seconds. She didn't announce the time. She didn't need to. The clock was right there. She stood, water running off everything, off her jacket, off her boots, off the ends of her hair. She looked at the group. That is the standard, she said, not a demonstration. The standard, which means it is achievable. She picked up her clipboard. Reset, next pair. Macklin stood against the wall, arms crossed, water dripping from his own hair. You showing off, he said. The words came out before he'd finished deciding to say them. She turned, looked at him, for the first time all morning. Actually looked. No, she said, just accurate. And she turned back to the clipboard, and the room felt smaller. Not because she'd said much, because what she hadn't said was doing all the work. The session ended at 9:15. Boone waited until the room was almost empty. Then he walked over to where Nora was hanging her vest on the equipment rack, moving slowly, like someone who'd been in a pool fully clothed and didn't particularly mind. That was clean, he said. She kept organizing the gear, didn't turn around. They needed to see the standard. They saw more than that. She was quiet for a moment. Good, she said. Boone's voice dropped. There's something I need to show you. Not here. His office smelled like coffee and old paper. The kind of smell that accumulates over years, decades maybe. He closed the door, sat down, pushed a single sheet of paper across the desk. Nora picked it up. Read it again. It was a transfer out request, standard military form, her name at the top, her service ID, requesting early separation from active duty. Effective 6 weeks ago, date of submission. Processing deadline 11 days from today. At the bottom where the signature should be, something close to her signature. Close enough to pass a casual review. Not close enough, not if you knew. She set the paper down. When did you find this? Yesterday. Personnel flagged it as routine. It almost went through without review. Boone leaned forward. If this processes you're out, voluntarily separated, all your documentation, everything you've been building, closes with you. 11 days. Someone filed this 6 weeks ago, which means 6 weeks ago someone knew what she was building. Who has access to that form system? Senior admin, unit command. A few accounts that can file on behalf of officers in certain medical categories. He paused. Someone used the inner ear classification, the one already in your file. The medical excuse, the cover story that wasn't hers, used now by someone else, against her. They built the door, she said, quiet. And now they're trying to walk me through it. Boone said nothing. 11 days, she said. Yes, I'll file a formal challenge, documented, dated. Already pulled the challenge form. It's under your door. She looked at him. When? 05:30. She almost smiled, almost. You didn't sleep. I sleep fine. The exact tone of someone who has not slept fine since at least 2009. She stood. Thank you, Boone. He nodded once. Like acknowledgement was enough and anything more would be embarrassing for both of them. She was at the door when he said, they're scared of what you're building. She stopped. Didn't turn around. Good, she said, and she walked out. She knew they were coming. Not because she could predict Macklin specifically, but because she could predict the type. Men like Cord Macklin don't absorb a morning like that one quietly. They marinate in it. They talk to each other. They work each other up. They need to restore something. Some sense of order. Some confirmation that the morning was the anomaly. Not them. So when the session ended and the bay went quiet, Nora did not go directly to the locker room. She went to the equipment bay first, found the duty tech, had a brief specific conversation. Camera coverage in the women's locker corridor, she said. I need it active. Now. The tech blinked. I'm reporting a credible concern about my personal safety in that corridor. I'm requesting the camera be activated per security protocol 7-4. He looked at her, at the fading bruise on her cheekbone. Yes, ma'am. That was 0940. At 10:15, Nora walked into the locker corridor. At 10:53, sets of boots came down the hallway. The camera had been running for 35 minutes. Macklin had Hewitt and Dade with him, because of course he did. This is the thing about men like Macklin. They travel in formation, not out of strength, out of the deep, unexamined understanding that alone they are less certain of everything. Nora was at her locker, back to the door. She heard them, didn't turn. Let them come in. Let the door close behind them. Macklin's voice, low now, not bar loud, locker room quiet, which was somehow worse. Commander, she turned, took them in, all three. Positions, distances, the tension in Macklin's shoulders she had been watching all morning. You embarrassed us out there, he said, in front of the whole command. She looked at him, not unkindly, not coldly, just directly. No one embarrassed you, she said. You were given a standard you didn't meet. That's not embarrassment, that's information. Macklin's jaw shifted. You made us look like we don't belong here. You've been here 14 months, she said. That question answers itself. Which landed. She saw it land. Dade looked at Hewitt. Hewitt looked at the floor. Macklin stepped forward. You think you're better than us. I think I've been doing this longer than you've been shaving, she said. Which isn't better, it's just math. Something shifted in Macklin's face. Not rage, worse than rage. That particular thing that lives underneath rage. The thing rage is usually covering. Fear, or whatever fear becomes in a young man who was never taught it was allowed to just be fear. You want to know what I think, he said. Not particularly, she said. And that was the moment. He swung. Not a bar flick this time. A full horizontal jab, aimed at her jaw, designed to end the conversation. Except, she moved, right foot back, torso rotating, half a second, less. His fist connected with air. And in the same motion, her forearm caught his elbow, guided it forward, used his own momentum against him. She stepped beneath his extended arm, pivoted, redirected his center of gravity, and planted him spine first on the concrete. It happened very fast and very quietly. Hewitt didn't think. He lunged, arm extended, going for her shoulder. She rotated, dropped low, swept his lead foot with her heel. He hit the side of the bench, ribs first. The air left his lungs in a single involuntary sound. Dade hesitated. One beat, two. She didn't wait. One step, two pivots. A wrist lock that turned into a shoulder compression that turned into Dade flat on the floor with his cheek against the concrete and no real understanding of how he'd gotten there. 3 men, 10 seconds. Nora stood in the middle of them, sleeves still dripping from the pool demonstration, breathing steady, hands open, at her sides. Macklin was on his back looking at the ceiling. His expression was the expression of someone whose internal narrative has just encountered a very significant obstacle. Then footsteps from the corridor. 2 base security officers stepped into the doorway, hands at belts, reading the room. What's going on? Nora raised one hand, slowly, palm out. They slipped, she said. The officer looked at her, at the 3 men on the floor, at the camera mounted in the corridor behind him that had been running for 35 minutes. He keyed his radio. Possible training incident, no injuries, we'll file light. He looked at Nora once more. She had already turned back to her locker and resumed what she'd been doing before they arrived. She sat in the equipment storage room at 11:47 at night. The base was its own particular quiet after midnight, not silence. The mechanical hum of systems that run whether or not people are awake to need them. Ventilation, the distant generator, a door somewhere down the corridor that didn't quite close right. She'd been sitting there for 20 minutes before she noticed she was sitting there. How does that even work, she thought. How do you end up somewhere without deciding to go? She was looking at her reflection in the dark glass of a supply cabinet. Not on purpose. It was just there. And she was just there. She thought about Daniel. He used to make her tea. Every time without asking. Plain black. Steeped too long by most standards. He didn't even drink tea himself, but he knew she did. He'd just make it and put it next to wherever she was working, without announcing it, without waiting for thanks. Just there. She had taken it for granted. Obviously, she had taken it for granted. You take things for granted when they are reliable. That's what reliable means. You don't understand what reliable meant until it stops. Until you are in a storage room at midnight looking at your own face in a dark window. And the most complete sentence in your head is, he used to make me tea. She heard the door. Didn't move. Boone sat down next to her on the equipment crate. He didn't say anything for a while. Neither did she. The ventilation hummed. The door down the corridor didn't quite close. Eventually, she said, I'm tired, Boone. He didn't say, of course you are. Didn't say you've been through so much. None of the things that are technically true and somehow make everything worse. He said, I know, just that. She looked at her hands. Not of the work. I'm not tired of that. She stopped. I'm tired of having to prove the work is mine. I know, he said again. I submitted clean reports, filed properly, followed every protocol for 3 years, and someone sat in an office and typed my name on a form designed to make me disappear. She paused. Not because I did anything wrong, Because I started being a problem for somebody's comfort level. Boone was quiet. I watched you at Ramsey, he said finally. In 17, 8 months. You ran extractions like you'd been born doing it. No complaints, no requests for recognition, just the work. She looked at the dark glass. That used to feel like strength, she said. It is strength. Sometimes it feels like... She stopped. Like I've been so busy being unbreakable that I forgot to tell anyone I was carrying something. He was quiet. Then, Daniel knew. She didn't answer. He always knew, Boone said. Careful. You didn't have to tell him, he just saw it anyway. Yes, she said. They sat there. The ventilation hummed. Then Boone said, Whitfield called. He wants to see you at 0800. She took a breath, let it out. Okay. He stood to leave. Boone, yeah. Thank you for sitting here. He made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. Hard to tell with Boone. Go sleep, he said. 8 hours. You can't order me. Friendly order. She almost smiled. Almost. Commander Whitfield's office had 2 windows. Both faced the motor pool, which meant the light was industrial and the view was trucks. Functional. Unromantic. Which suited Whitfield fine. He was 53. Lean in the specific way of men who were lean as young men and simply stayed that way through discipline and indifference to pastries. He had a way of looking at you that made you feel your file was playing in his head at low volume. Nora sat across from his desk at 0800. He looked at her for a moment, then put 2 things on the desk. First, the fake retirement form. She looked at it, didn't touch it. You've seen this, he said. Boone showed me yesterday. Good. We've traced the submission account. He paused. Senior Administrative Officer, Colonel Weber, currently on leave. Another pause. He will not be returning from that leave under the circumstances he imagined. She processed this, said nothing. Second thing, Whitfield said. He put down a folder, thicker. She looked at it. He opened it. 4 names, 4 reports, dates spanning 14 months. We're reopening these, he said. She was quiet. All 4 were closed for insufficient evidence, he said, which was technically accurate at the time. No corroborating documentation from a neutral party. And now, she said. He looked at her for a moment. Someone submitted a package to the Inspector General's office 4 days ago, before any of this came to my desk. He paused. Time-stamped audio from Danner's bar. 3 sign and witness statements from regular patrons. A detailed account of the incident involving you, and a cover letter citing an unresolved pattern of conduct affecting women in service at this installation. She went very still. The submission came from a private party, Whitfield continued, not military affiliated, currently. She looked at him. Currently, she repeated, previously served as JAG officer, 19 years, separated 2011. She said nothing. Are you surprised? Whitfield asked. She thought about Garrison, the way he moved behind his bar, the economy of it, not the movements of a man who had spent his life pouring drinks, the way he'd had his phone out before she'd even cleared the parking lot that first night, the way he looked at her when she came in, read her uniform, read her face, and put down a glass without asking a single question. Like he already understood exactly what kind of person sat quietly in a corner and asked for nothing. Because he was one of them. No, she said. He didn't tell you, Whitfield said. He didn't have to. Whitfield held her gaze a moment. The IG submission is under active review. The retirement form is being invalidated. Weber will face a conduct board, he paused. Macklin and his associates will have a formal hearing. Evidence from both incidents has been secured. The locker room footage, she said, secured and verified, chain of custody intact. His voice was neutral, professional, and underneath it something that wasn't quite approval, but was in the neighborhood of it. The timestamp on your security request predates the incident by 35 minutes. Correct. You notified security of a credible safety concern. Correct. Before anything happened. Correct. He looked at her. A long moment. I've been in command positions for 17 years, he said. I have rarely seen anyone manage a situation with this degree of, he chose the word carefully, architecture. She didn't say anything. Monday morning, he said, JAG conference room, 0900, you'll be called to testify. I'll be ready. She stood, picked up her jacket. He said, the 4 women in that folder, they're being contacted, given the opportunity to reopen their cases with proper representation. She stopped, her hand on the back of the chair. Thank you, she said, and she meant it in a way that had nothing to do with the rest of it. Not the hearing, not Macklin, not Weber. Just 4 women, 14 months, closed files, now open. She walked out. JAG conference room 3A had no windows, no natural light, no view, just 4 walls, a mounted screen, a long steel table that had absorbed a great deal of difficult silence over the years and showed no signs of being troubled by more of it. At 0859, the door opened. Cord Macklin walked in first. Full dress uniform, pressed, correct, every detail regulation. He sat down, didn't look around the room. Hewitt came in after him, then Dade. They sat in a line, shoulders back, faces arranged into expressions of careful neutrality. Their unit CO sat 2 chairs down, arms crossed, the expression of a senior officer handed a problem he didn't create and is not pleased about. At 0900 exactly, Commander Whitfield entered. No folder, just a notepad, a pen, and the specific quality of stillness that belongs to people who have sat in a great many rooms like this one and stopped being impressed by them. Take your seats. They were already seated, but they sat differently after he said it. Then the door opened again. Nora Calloway stepped in, full dress uniform, dive insignia above the left breast, rank bar polished. The bruise on her cheekbone still faintly visible. Yellow-green, almost gone. Almost, but not quite. She stood at ease behind the second row of chairs, didn't sit. Macklin looked at this table. Hewitt looked at his hands. Dade looked at the wall, just to the left of the screen. Whitfield turned on the monitor. Exhibit 1. The screen lit up. Security footage. Danner's bar. No sound, just the grainy, honest gray blue of a camera that records everything without editorializing. The bar, the corner booth, a woman reading. 3 men walking in. The room watched. On screen, 2 fingers raised. A forehead flicked. Then the punch. The kind of silence after that isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of something. The screen showed Nora rising. Slow, steady, the lip wiped with a knuckle. The jacket, one arm then the other. The walkout. Then, second clip, locker corridor, timestamp visible in the bottom right corner. The timestamp that showed 0940. 35 minutes before Macklin walked into that corridor. 35 minutes before anyone swung. The room watched Macklin go down, Hewitt go down, Dade go down. 3 men, 10 seconds. And then Nora, standing in the middle of them. Hands open, breathing steady. Whitfield clicked pause. He looked at Macklin. Not with anger. Whitfield didn't do anger in rooms like this. He did something quieter and considerably more effective. Do you want to explain what we just watched? Macklin cleared his throat. Sir, I want to express that I regret the incidents and that... That's not what I asked. Silence. She was reading a book, Whitfield said. Macklin stopped. In a bar, off base, on her personal time. Same volume, all morning. She was sitting in a corner, reading a book, and you walked over to her. Nobody said anything. Walk me through the misunderstanding, Whitfield said. Macklin had nothing. You could see it. The moment when the story he had rehearsed all weekend ran directly into the footage it was trying to explain, and collapsed, quietly, without drama. Whitfield turned to Hewitt. You filmed it. Sir, you uploaded it. It was... The thread was titled Seal Barbie Gets Wet. He said it the way you read a legal document. Flat, accurate, without commentary. Hewitt said nothing. Whitfield set his pen down. Here is what the record shows, he said. He didn't open a folder. He didn't check notes. He just said it, like it was fully formed, because it was. You located a female officer, off base, alone. You approached, harassed, and struck her. You filmed it and distributed the footage for the entertainment of your unit. Pause. 4 days later, in a secure facility, you confronted her again, 3 of you, and attempted to assault her a second time. Another pause. She had documented the safety threat in advance. The camera was active per protocol. Everything that followed is on tape. He looked at the 3 of them. You were not conducting yourselves as Marines. You were conducting yourselves as people who believed they would not be held accountable. And that belief was until now reasonable, based on precedent. That landed differently. Even Macklin looked up. Whitfield let it sit, like he meant for it to. Then he turned to Nora. Commander Calloway, you've submitted no request for punitive action. No, sir. Why? She looked at him. Because punishment addresses individuals, she said, and this is not an individual problem. The room was so quiet you could hear the ventilation. Effective immediately, Whitfield said. Article 15 proceedings for all 3. Corporal Macklin reduction in rank. Restricted to base pending conduct review. Corporal Hewitt and Corporal Dade formal reprimand. Mandatory conduct review. Digital evidence archived. Macklin's jaw was tight, but he said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. The footage had said everything, in the particular way footage does, without inflection, without motive, without the ability to be argued with. Just what happened, in the order it happened. Whitfield stood. This board finds the conduct in question dishonorable, and the attempts to excuse it irrelevant. He gathered his notepad. Dismissed. Chairs scraped back. Nora walked out first. She didn't look at Macklin, didn't slow, didn't adjust her pace for anyone else's comfort. She walked the same way she always walked, like she already knew where she was going. 3 days later, the investigation into Colonel Weber moved forward without fanfare. No press releases, no announcements over the PA system, no dramatic confrontations in hallways. Just a man on leave in Georgia who received a call, who was informed of a board date, who would need to be present. The fake retirement form was formally invalidated, dated, documented, entered into the record as evidence of obstruction. All of it quiet, all of it precise. The 4 women were each contacted individually by a JAG representative in private. 1 had left the service, 1 was still stationed in Nevada, 2 were within 50 miles of Camp Hollander. All 4 said yes. Yes to reopening. Yes to representation. Yes to standing in a room and saying what had happened, which took courage. The specific, quiet, grinding courage of going back to a place you thought was closed, of reopening a door you had locked because locking it was the only way to keep moving, and then choosing to open it again because someone built a record strong enough to hold. Garrison was behind his bar on a Thursday afternoon when the door opened. He looked up. Cord Macklin, civilian clothes, no uniform, no Hewitt, no Dade, just him. He looked smaller, not physically, but something about the way he stood was different. The default reach of it, the way he used to walk into a room like he was claiming it. Gone. He looked at Garrison. Is she here? Garrison looked at him for a long moment, then tilted his head toward the corner booth. Macklin walked over. He stopped a few feet from the table. Nora looked up from her book. She didn't say anything. Macklin stood there. He looked like a man who had rehearsed something extensively and has now arrived at the moment of performance and discovered that the rehearsal was insufficient. He opened his mouth, started to say something, stopped, tried again. I had a whole thing prepared, he said. It sounded better in my head. She waited. He exhaled. I didn't know about the other women, he said, the 4 reports. I didn't know. I know you didn't, she said. He blinked, like he'd expected something else. You know, you're not sophisticated enough to know about suppressed IG reports and deploy them strategically, she said, not unkindly, just accurately. You were arrogant and careless, and you didn't think about who you were dealing with. That's different from calculated. He was quiet. It doesn't make it better, she said. No, he said, but it's different. He nodded, looked at the table for a moment. I didn't think someone like you could be real, he said. Like I genuinely didn't. Someone like you just sitting in a bar, like a person. She looked at him. What did you think I was? I don't know. He seemed to be genuinely searching. Something that didn't apply to me, like a category I could just not deal with. A category, she said. Yeah. She was quiet for a moment. That's not about me, she said finally. That's about what you were taught to see, and what nobody ever corrected. He looked at her, then at the table. I'm sorry, he said. Not performed, not coached, not the apology someone gives when they want a thing to be over. The apology someone gives when they have finally actually understood what they did, which is rarer and means more. She looked at him. I know, she said. He nodded, once, and left. Garrison watched him go through the door, stood there for a moment, then walked over to Nora's booth. Put down a fresh glass. Didn't say anything, but the napkin underneath was folded into a precise triangle, the way it always was. She looked up at him. 19 years, Jag, she said. Long time ago, he said. Not that long. He almost smiled. I still know how to write a cover letter, he said. He went back behind the bar. It was the note from the first woman that did it. The one who had left the service, who had been in Denver for 2 years, working in construction management, building things. She sent a brief note through the JAG representative. Not long, not dramatic. Just, I didn't think anyone was going to do anything. I had decided that was just how it was. Thank you for making it something else. Nora read it at her desk. At 11 at night, in the small government issue room with the one photo on the desk, Daniel in a yellow raincoat, Cape Cod, laughing. She read the note twice. Then she folded it, put it in the blue notebook, between 2 pages near the back. She closed the notebook, looked at the photo. She had started this thinking it was about accountability, about documentation, about building something airtight enough that the system couldn't ignore it. And it was those things. But sitting here at 11 at night, reading 6 lines from a woman in Denver who had stopped believing anything was going to change, she understood it was also something else. It was about the next woman, the one who hasn't arrived at Camp Hollander yet, who doesn't know what she's walking into, who will sit in a briefing room or a training bay or a bar somewhere and wonder if she's the only one who sees the pattern. For that woman, the record exists now. The door's a different shape than it was. Nora looked at the photo. You don't have to carry everything alone. She used to hear that as an invitation to put things down, to ask for help. But sitting here tonight, she understood it differently. You don't have to carry everything alone because you're not alone. There's Boone, who sat next to her in the equipment room and said, I know, and meant it. There's Reyes, who watched the video and saw what everyone else missed. There's Garrison, who spent 19 years learning exactly how the system works and has been watching from behind that bar, waiting for something worth filing. There's a woman in Denver who builds things and wrote 6 lines and meant every word. You don't carry it alone. You just sometimes have to be the first one willing to pick it up. The proposal went through 3 drafts before she sent it. Not satisfied. That wasn't the right word. Nora wasn't someone who used the word satisfied about her own work. More like done enough to send. The proposal outlined a mandatory training program, cross-unit, all ranks, focused on conduct reporting culture and what she called in the document with characteristic bluntness, the cost of institutional silence. Not abstract policy, not theoretical frameworks, actual cases, actual outcomes, anonymized where necessary, but real, because real is the only thing that works. She submitted it through Whitfield's office on a Wednesday morning. Whitfield read it, sent it up the chain. With a 1-line cover note, recommend review and implementation. This is overdue, which was for Whitfield effusive. Boone saw a copy, read all 22 pages in his office. He called her. This will take years, he said. Yes, she said. A pause. Years, he said again, like she hadn't heard him the first time. The ones that last usually do, she said. Another pause. Daniel would have read every word, Boone said. She was quiet for a moment. He would have, she said, and then asked me why I used the word implementation when I clearly meant change. Boone made the sound he made when something was funny and he didn't want to encourage it. She smiled, into the phone, into the empty office, into the particular quiet of an afternoon in November, when the Pacific is somewhere past the tree line and something is slowly and perfectly actually beginning to shift. She went to Danner's that Friday, same time, 8:15. Garrison looked up, she nodded, he nodded. She went to her corner, sat. The bar was quieter than usual. A few contractors near the back, a young sailor at the counter nursing a soda and looking at his phone. 2 older men playing cribbage at the high top near the window. Normal, unremarkable. Garrison brought her glass over, set it down, folded napkin underneath. She looked at the napkin, then up at him. He looked back. That was the entire transaction. He went back behind the bar. She opened her book. Page 47, the same page she had been unable to get past since October. She read it, turned it. Page 48. The jukebox was cooperating tonight, playing something slow from 1994, a song she half recognized. One of the cribbage men said something to the other one. The other one laughed. Low, private, the laugh of 2 people who have known each other long enough to have whole conversations in half sentences. Outside somewhere past the tree line, the Pacific was doing what it always did, moving, breathing, old enough to have seen everything, patient enough not to be troubled by any of it. Nora read, turned a page, thought about the woman in Denver, building things, writing 6 lines that meant everything. Thought about the next woman, whoever she was, wherever she was. The record exists. The door is different. You're not the first. You won't be the last. She turned another page. Page 50. The tide outside was doing what tides do, pulling back, and then, because it always does, coming in. This is a work of fiction, inspired by real conversations about respect, accountability, and the cost of staying silent when silence costs someone everything.